Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am Just Some Dude on the Internet, and this is Just Some Podcast. And I have a very special guest today. This is Kennedi Travis.
Hello.
Say hello, Kennedi.
Hello.
And our topic today is going to be about dog training. Kennedi has an extensive background in training dogs. I'll kick it off to you to introduce yourself.
So I got my start at Petco. I worked there for about 3.5 years. I was a senior dog trainer. What that meant is I got to go to Texas to their headquarters and work for a week with the trainers there. And then was sent back to my home store here in Fountain Hills, which is no longer open, unfortunately. And I trained other dog trainers how to train dogs while also running my dog training part of the store, which was a lot of fun. In the midst of that, I decided I wanted to do it as a full-time career. And so I started getting different certifications while working for Petco, one of which was the Fear-Free Certified Professional, and a couple other things through the AKC and Certification of Professional Dog Training. I joined the Association of Professional Dog Trainers and the Pet Professional Guild too. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I was pushed out into the real world just a little quicker than I expected. And ever since 2020, I've been running my business now in Fountain Hills and having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for that introduction. Now, as a dog trainer, I'm sure that you have seen all kinds of different situations. And just, I'm curious, like off the top of your head, what has been the most difficult animal that you've had to train?
I think, that's a tough one. One of the most difficult ones I've ever worked with was actually an Old English Sheepdog. And he was a blast to work with, but he had a mind of his own. And one of the problems his owners was having is that he would just open the refrigerator and go through it and get the things that he wanted. And
as one does when they are hungry. That's just an advanced training technique, I guess.
And he was a blast. You couldn't get mad at him. His temperament was just great. And he's still alive. He is currently living his best life with his family. He's calmed down quite a bit.
And how old is he now?
I'm not entirely sure how old he is now, but he is a senior boy. And the last time I heard from that family, they actually have another younger Old English Sheepdog in the picture. So,
well, hopefully that one's not pulling food out of the refrigerator.
Well, they haven't given me a call, so it must not be a problem.
Yeah. So one of the things I've got on my list here to talk about that I was hoping that you could shed some light on was proper socialization of dogs. And before we jump into that, I'll also preface for my audience, I have he's just shy of 10 months old now, golden retriever. His name is Banjo, and he has been being trained through Kennedi since he was about 8 weeks old, probably about 9 to 10 weeks, I think is whenever we had introduced them. And so we've kind of gone through this phase recently of like, you've got this little baby tornado, and how do I best handle this? Then speaking as somebody that has grown up with Yorkies for pets, they're very different than golden retriever.
Very different.
So I was hoping that you could shed some light on proper socialization and kind of inform the audience a little bit about what that looks like and why it's important.
Critical learning period typically starts between 3 and 16 weeks. And the most important socialization period is between 3 and 14 weeks. So usually people get their puppies at about 8 weeks old, maybe 10 weeks, depending on the breeder or the rescue or whoever they're getting their puppy through. And then we don't socialize them during that critical learning period, which means we end up dogs that are fearful, maybe a little lacking in communication with other dogs, and that can come out aggressive. So it's really, really important to work on socialization in a safe way. Now, socialization doesn't mean playing with other dogs.
I was going to ask, because people tend to think socialization, I need to put my dog in front of another animal, but what about the vaccination side of that?
Exactly. So it doesn't always involve play. Simple socialization means exposure to new sights, sounds, smells, sensations, and events in a positive, structured manner. So for example, I like it when breeders take their puppies and take a paintbrush and rub their paws with the paintbrush. That's a type of socialization because it's a sensation. When you bring your puppy home, They're not going to be fully vaccinated, so it is going to be a little iffy taking them out into the real world, but there are ways that we can do it safely. One of my suggestions is to get a pet stroller or a wagon and take them for little trips around the neighborhood if you're worried about them picking up something from the street. Definitely don't take them to dog parks. Don't take them to pet stores. Don't take them to where large amounts of dogs are converging in on each other until they're fully vaccinated. But you can take them around the park, like the fountain here in Fountain Hills, and just stroll them in a stroller. That way they're going to see other dogs. They're going to hear people talking, and they may get petted by one or two kids curiously walking by. And that's really good socialization. You also want to expose them to different sounds like a hairdryer or a fan or giving them a ride in the car. You know, those are all very, very important ways that we can socialize our dogs. And we want to do that ideally before they hit 14 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. I know for Banjo, when we started out, you had given us the same advice. And it was like, let's start introducing him to new people, have somebody come into the home that he's never met before. So it's like they're in his space. He doesn't have to go out into the world. Just small, intimate invites with other people for a little bit. And then we did find spots like at the park that you were saying where it's like, all right, there's no other animal over here. You can go ahead and run around in this little area for, you know, a couple of minutes. And how long would you recommend again for, you know, those sessions where they're
short and sweet, you know, no more than 10, 15 minutes at a go, because it can be quite overwhelming for puppies. Remember to bring treats with you because you want to reward constantly while this is going on. So they associate any noises they might hear that they might be afraid of, for example, with something neutral or at least something positive. And then, of course, just working on creating that safe place in the world for them. You don't want a reactive dog.
Yeah. And I would say do not underestimate the power of treats. If your dog is food motivated, I will say mine is. And sometimes it feels like that's the only way to get him to pay attention because he'll listen for a little bit, but then decide to do his own thing with the moment that he hears a treat bag or whatever. He'll sit in attention and be like, okay,
he's ready to go. He's ready to go.
Need to get my reward. Speaking of like of other dogs, so like as the dog gets older and we start doing more introductions to other animals, how would you recommend going about that? What is like a successful dog interaction look like to you?
One of my favorite things actually is to just start out a couple times on a parallel walk where we're just walking down the street with a potential play partner. We're not letting them say hello to each other just yet. I don't really agree with on-leash interactions by any means. And then taking them to a neutral location, such as a sniff spot or perhaps a friend's backyard, and letting them play for just a short period of time. You want to kind of start this as soon as possible so that they learn how to read each other's body language, because that's how dogs communicate. And sometimes when a puppy hasn't been socialized properly, they can't read other dogs properly. And then you end up with miscommunications, which leads to altercations.
Yeah. And I can even attest to that a little bit. My family has a Yorkie that has kind of not really had to be around other dogs. She's on a big property by herself. You know, she'll bark at other animals across the way, but there's never really been another animal in her space too much. And I think maybe the only interaction that she had was when she was little, you know, kind of being bossed around by another dog. And then now she's a little bit older. Anytime that there's a dog in her space, I'm barking at you if you go for my toy. I'm barking at you if you go for your toy. You know, don't look at me. You know, don't touch me. Don't sniff me. It's becomes just like this constant battle of my puppy wants to just interact with the other dog, and the other dog is constantly on the offense.
Correcting the puppy. Yep. So that's why we socialize young, but also work on proper dog-to-dog introductions.
One interaction that Banjo had was actually when he was getting his picture taken by you when you were in your Santa Santa outfit. And I remember this. There's very little animals that he's interacted with that are bigger than him at this point. But there was an older female dog that was very floofy. And I remember he was just like, I want to jump on you. I want to play with you. And like this dog, instead of barking, it just literally showed like no interest. Just didn't look at him, turned around, walked away. And I thought that was interesting, that it's like I think the older dog was able to kind of tell, like, okay, this is a puppy. I don't need to be mean.
Yep. There's a really good book that people should look into if they're interested without going into the deep textbook style books. And that's a book called On Talking Terms with Dogs, Calming Signals. And I'm going to butcher her name, by Turid Regrass. And it's, I believe, 75 pages long, lots of pictures. So if you're not a reader, you can still look at the pictures and gain a basic understanding of body language, which I think is very important because it allows you to read what your dog is saying and what other dogs are saying within context of the environment.
Yeah. Let me take a look at my list here. We've got a couple other things on here. Enrichment.
Oh, yes.
So the next natural stage for the dogs is how do we enrich their lives with new experiences, new toys, new places. There's a lot covered in that, like, bullet point. So tell us about enrichment.
Enrichment is a special passion of mine. I try to include it in my dog training because I think it's an important aspect of owning a dog. Enrichment allows the dog to exhibit natural canine behaviors in an appropriate setting. For example, if you have a dog that likes to dig in the backyard, why don't we get a kiddie pool, put their toys in it or some balls or something and hide food underneath, and they can dig through that safely and find the food versus digging in the backyard. Another enrichment activity I really like has to do with just hiding food around the house and letting them find the food, because foraging is a natural behavior for dogs. And of course, when you just feed them out of a bowl, you take away that foraging aspect of their behavior. That's
a very good point. And I will speak to the feeding out of a bowl versus finding more creative ways to feed your animal. You had introduced us to something that is called the bob-a-lot.
Oh, yes, the bob-a-lot. I love the bob-a-lot.
And I always tell Banjo, I'm like, you don't bob a little, you bob a whole lot. But effectively, for the audience, I'll describe it. It's just a little ball that kind of has a tube-like chamber. You fill it with food, and there's a little hole at the bottom. So the dog will, instead of just like eating out of the bowl, they'll have to move this thing with their nose, their paws, and then it'll rotate. And as it rotates, it'll drop a single piece of food. So they're kind of picking it up one piece at a time. And he'll move around the house and it'll take him, instead of, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to just devour a whole bunch of food, it'll take him, 15, 20 minutes max. And then he's had his entire meal, fed one piece at a time, and it's more enriching for him.
And he's probably more content after that type of activity versus just simply eating out of a bowl. And enrichment can really, really help with staving off age-related dementia. It can also be utilized to help dogs that are on kennel rest, maybe after they get their spay or neuter surgery, or they have some other type of procedure done and they can't do a lot of moving around. Well, how do you entertain them without sedating them? Enrichment is a big part of that. And those can be, a Kong filled with stuff that's been frozen. You can do licky match. You can even make your own enrichment activities at home by simply laying a beach towel on the floor, covering it with their food, rolling it up really tight, placing it on the floor, and letting them figure out how to get the food out.
Yeah, that's an activity. It's a brain puzzle that they're doing. Speaking of puzzles, I mean, you have a ton of puzzles that you have kind of let us borrow throughout the weeks as we've been going through training with Banjo. And those have been a hit. And I imagine that other dogs too, so for the audience, the way that this works is they have like different tiers of difficulty, like levels. And it can be as simple as, hey, you just push down on this thing and then some food will come out. And then it can get more complicated to, like, you have to pull out a drawer, you have to flip a switch, you have to move something first before you can do those things. And the dog, the further that they get along, the more they have to interact with this in a meaningful way, as opposed to, my puppy's default strategy in the beginning was bang, 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 or let me just flip it upside down and try to, shake it. Can you tell us a little bit about like puzzles and how you use them and how effective they are?
Typically when I start a class, I start with really, really easy puzzles where they have to, move something to the side and there's food underneath. And then we go up in level. Not every toy is going to work for every dog, which is why I let clients borrow my toys so that we can figure out which style works best for which dog. And then we kind of go from there. Banjo's kind of a special case because he has really, really good pet parents. And you guys are fostering that intelligence within him so that he can learn to problem solve with these puzzles. There are some dogs I work with that I would not be giving the level of toys that I've given you guys to borrow with Banjo, just because the dogs aren't really that interested in figuring out algebra versus just doing addition.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I will still say, Banjo, the one thing that he still struggles with is anything that's a pressing motion. It just becomes slap it over and over and over and over again as fast as possible.
Until the food pops out.
Yeah.
Which is solving it, in a way. We're just impatient.
Yes, he can be quite impatient. Okay, now this next topic that I've got on my list here, I know that you are particularly passionate about leashes in public.
Oh, yes.
So give us the scoop.
So we should be leashing our dogs in public places as well as residential areas, especially when there are leash laws present, depending on which state, which county, which community you live in. In Fountain Hills, we are in Maricopa County, and there are leash laws in place. Dogs that are off leash are considered at large, and you can get a ticket for that. I like dogs on a leash for a couple different reasons. One, it keeps your dog safe. It prevents them from running into wildlife that maybe they shouldn't be running into. For example, a coyote that just pops out of a wash or a javelina. But it also prevents them from going up and greeting dogs that may not be friendly that are out utilizing that public place, as they should be allowed to do. They're on a leash. They're walking nicely. Who wants to be accosted by an exuberant off-leash dog?
Yeah.
That's what leads to altercations. It also keeps people safe. I was just at the park the other day, and there was a dog that was off-leash that almost knocked down an elderly lady who was just
a larger dog too?
Yes. And of course, the dog was friendly and just wanted to say hello. But the lady was just out for her daily walk, trying to get some exercise, and she could have fallen and really hurt herself because that dog wasn't on leash. I've also seen the fallout with off-leash interactions. So, for example, if I'm walking my dog and an off-leash dog comes up and they get into a fight, I now have to deal with that fallout. That can include my dog becoming fearful of other dogs or becoming aggressive towards other dogs and becoming really, really reactive. Frankly, it's irresponsible and quite selfish of people not to be following the leash laws.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And even people that take their dogs out on leashes in public, I have found even in like PetSmart, for example, walking around where the owner is not paying attention to their animal, and my dog is just in his bubble, and then all of a sudden these other animals on an extended leash are just walking up to him.
Leashes.
Yeah, walking up to him, and he's kind of intimidated and scared, and the owner's not even paying attention because quote they're on a leash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I worked at Petco, I was at the cashier checking some customers out, and they happened to have their dog on a Flexi leash, and the dog had walked through the vegetable and was outside waiting for their owners to catch up. And it was kind of holding up foot traffic because people couldn't come in because there was this off-leash dog that was barking at everybody else. And the owners were oblivious. I would love those things to be outlawed.
So along the same vein of, being in public spaces with your animal, I know that you have talked about how dog parks are not a place that you would frequent. And I'm curious your take on that, because before getting Banjo, seeing dog parks that were out and about, my initial thought was like, oh, this is great. I could totally see my animal being here. And I want to get your clear-cut perspective on why you wouldn't recommend taking your dog to a dog park and finding an alternative.
Well, in a perfect world, dog parks are wonderful things, but we live in an imperfect world. And people bring under-socialized dogs to dog parks. Now, the dog park is not a place to socialize your animals, okay? It's too many dogs in one place. It's also too many owners that are busy socializing with each other and not paying attention to their dogs. So when we have dogs communicating with each other and we start to see some of that behavior where the hackles are raised, the tails are being held a little differently, the ears are back, and growling's starting to happen, and no one's there to stop it. So then a fight happens. Then dog parks, unfortunately, don't require vaccinations and different things like that. And here we have leptospirosis, which is easy to pass. We have distemper and parvo and a couple other things. Giardia is a big one here. And people go to the dog parks, whether their dogs are sick or not. And then I take my dog, and my dog maybe gets ill because of something that they were exposed to at the dog park. For people who use it responsibly, more to them. But I personally don't take my dogs to dog parks. There's just too many cons. Instead, I utilize sniff spots. I love sniff spots. It usually, they're wonderful. They're well kept. People basically rent out their backyards for an hour. For a small fee, you can go and take your dog there to just let them run and be free. And we don't have to worry about dog fights. We don't have to worry about diseases. We just can focus on our friends having fun.
And I've even found success with sniff spots. One of my friends, their dog had turned 1. And they were saying, hey, I'm going to do like a little celebration for my dog that's a corgi, turning 1 year old. Would Banjo like to meet them? And it was just Banjo. So I got to take him when he was probably like 4 months old. And this was kind of on the tail end of the summer heat. So that was the first time that he had been exposed to a pool. And it was in a big enclosed area. He was able to run with this dog shepherding each other, and sniff spot was a great experience. And the house that we had ended up at, it was like they had the pool, they had some toys and stuff, I think, even out there, and then they had a big fan that I was able to turn on to help dry him off.
Oh, that's nice.
In the end too, yeah, it was just a big outside fan.
I've been to some where they have agility equipment. They have, poo stations and water stations and places to take pictures of your pets. I just think sniff spots are wonderful places. And they're great for dog introductions, too, because it's a neutral location.
Now, I heard you just mention like agility courses and stuff, and it just spurred a thought that, we haven't spoken about this yet. But for those that have purebred dogs, there is the AKC, the American Kennel Club. And I'm curious, could you tell us a little bit more about like the different certifications that exist and titles and stuff like that? Because that's an entire other universe that I kind of discovered through getting a purebred golden retriever. That
completely different universe.
Titles are a thing that exist.
I will tell you, I don't know much about the agility world. I do think it's a wonderful activity that you can do with your dogs in your backyard. I worked with a couple that had a couple golden retrievers that were actively participating in agility trials, and they lived, breathed, and ate that. It was a whole nother completely different lifestyle. The dogs certainly enjoyed it. I'm not sure if the people enjoyed all the travel they had to do in order to go to these different competitions. But mutts can also participate. As long as you're registered with the AKC, you can participate in those trials. If you have a mixed breed dog, I believe it's AKC Partners. Okay. You can register them. I believe last time I checked, I think it was $35, just a simple online application. And then your dog is enrolled and you can participate in different things like Canine Good Citizen, agility trials, fast cat, dock diving, all of that, which I think is great that they do that.
Now, Banjo got his, the first title that I still have to order. But
it was AKC Star Puppy?
Yeah. Could you tell us about what, like that AKC Star Puppy, what it stands for, and what you teach in that class? Because Banjo got so much out of it, and I just kind of want you to convey that to the audience in case they are interested and they've got a puppy.
Oh, yeah. I would strongly suggest finding an AKC Star Puppy class near you. It's open for puppies under a year old. I like to conduct classes where the puppies are similar in age to each other because it's the same energy level. Because a 10-week-old puppy is vastly different from a 6-month-old puppy in terms of energy level. And we work on socialization, training, all of those different things. It's a 20-test for the certification, 20 test items. And most of it is actually owner behaviors, which is, I find kind of interesting because it has to do with responsibility and teaching owners to be responsible. So
it's a two-way relationship with the animal. It's not just the animal.
Bringing poop bags to class, for example, and making sure your dog has water and the proper harness and leash and all of those things tie right into it. Identification, vaccinations, all of those things, just to name a few. And then we start working on puppy behaviors like sit and down and come. And is the puppy free of aggression towards its classmates as well as the handlers in class? All of those things. I enjoy teaching AKC Star Puppy. It's a lot of fun. And
I will say too, because we started with you doing just private lessons in the beginning. So we had gone through, the sit, down, come. We had practiced a lot of wait and stay and waiting at thresholds and stuff like that. So when we go to the door, he'll sit and wait for me to wave him through. But it's different doing those activities whenever they're surrounded by other animals and other distractions and
especially
being out in the world.
Their own age.
Yes. And I can recommend this for anybody that's interested because that socialization aspect, teaching your dog to just be able to sit there and not have to approach the other animals, like they can be within distance of one another and just kind of exist in their own world. I think that is something that a lot of people could benefit from.
Very, very important because in my class, I don't allow on-leash greetings. So the dogs learn, or the puppies rather in this case, learn that just because we're on a leash and we're out in public doesn't mean we get to say hello to the dogs around us. We have to be calm and exist within this space without playing 100% of the time.
Yeah. And as well, like one of the things that you had encouraged in that class that I didn't even consider was just the art of teaching your dog to do nothing. So
settle.
Yeah. Having a towel and going to a public place, park and laying the towel down, sitting on the towel for 15 minutes, set a timer and just watch the world go by. And then when time's up, then we go back and head home. And that activity, you'd probably think as a human, you're like, well, that sounds boring to just go someplace and sit for 15 minutes. But I sit and I watch my dog and he's sitting and he's watching people throw Frisbees. He's watching people walk by. He's, engaged in the world that is around him. And I think that's, I've even noticed that dogs that walk by him, they'll bark at him and he'll observe, but he doesn't have to necessarily feel the need to engage. Yeah.
And that's such an important part of it because a lot of people think dog training is just do. You're making your dog do something, but it's also important to teach them to do nothing and just exist and enjoy the world that they live in without being directly involved.
Yeah. And that goes very, very far. I will even say, like in my household, instead of putting the dog in the crate or in a playpen because I need to go do something, putting the dog in a stay or, in a place and then giving them a bone or something that they can chew on while I'm cooking dinner. The dog can passively be around me and can behave because they know that, okay, like I don't necessarily have to be doing something in this moment. Now, that only goes so far with an adolescent dog.
Yes, he's fully in his teenage stage.
Yeah, because he's got like 2 brain cells and they combat each other sometimes. But kind of wrapping that all back to the training aspect, AKC Star Puppy program was phenomenal. I would strongly recommend if anybody in the audience has a puppy, take that class.
Definitely take it. You will not regret it. I don't know about other dog trainers, but I certainly enjoy training that class.
One thing that I've got on my list here is about learning body language with our animals. Tell us about that.
So a lot of times I see pet parents say, oh, it just happened out of nowhere, whether perhaps the dog nips because you take something from them or they were trying to engage in play or something similar. And it didn't come out of nowhere. It did not come out of nowhere because dogs are constantly communicating with us. Now, those communications can be subtle. It's not a spoken language like you and I are speaking. It is very much body language. And that book I mentioned earlier is a very, very important read. I think everybody who gets a puppy or gets a dog should read that book because it really does help you understand when your dog's uncomfortable in a social situation and maybe they need to be removed from that situation before something happens. Learning to respect the growl, not punishing for the growl. Letting the dog communicate. The growl is the yell before the punch, right? Learning that just because a tail is wagging does not mean the dog is happy. You need to look at the whole picture, how the body is being held, where the weight is.
The ears,
the eyes, the mouth. It's all right there in front of us. We just have to learn to read it.
Yeah. More often than not, when I'm looking at my dog, it's the butt wiggle and the cheesy smile. But like you're saying, there are. It's not fair to assume that all dogs have the same background, right? A lot of animals have been, passed through abusive situations or have been in. God, what are they called? Where they keep animals, I forgot. They just
shelters, rescues.
Yeah, wow. Great moment for my brain to just be like, forget a word. But yeah, all of these animals can come from various different backgrounds. And, to assume that, I should just be able to walk up and pet any dog. No, I always, I've taken it, kind of as far as like, I'll take my glasses off and extend, and let the dog sniff or whatever to get to know me before I ever try to interact and like, put my face near another animal.
No, never ever put your face in front of a dog's face, especially when you don't know. That's an invitation to be bit. A lot of times we view dogs as these creatures that just like to be petted all the time, and we go into their space without asking. So reading the body language and making sure the dog is open and comfortable to the interaction can save a lot of bad things from happening, whether that's a nip, or urination or a number of different things. I always want the dog to be comfortable, and I always want the people to be safe. And reading body language is the first step to that, because you can prevent a lot of questionable things from happening by just learning how to read that.
By being aware. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aware. Watch your dogs. Watch your dogs.
You don't know what you don't know, and now you know. One word that stood out to me a little bit ago that you had said that I kind of want to dive into a little bit more is punishment, right? When we see dog owners that don't know how to curb behavior, but rather punish and use punitive action, that doesn't necessarily go as far. And I'd like to get your perspective on how to use positive reinforcement.
Oh, definitely, because I am a positive reinforcement trainer. So I do not use punishments when I'm training a dog. And instead, I will simply walk away and ignore if it's a behavior I'm not too particularly happy about, or I'll redirect. It depends on the situation. It depends on the dog. If I were to go and say, flick a dog's nose because they were barking, what did I just do? I hurt my friend.
Yeah.
And that's going to potentially harm the relationship that I have with that dog. And that dog may start to associate the thing that they were barking at with that flick, and the behavior might get worse. So as a fear-free trainer, I do not utilize any type of punishment. Now, I know a lot of people are going to have different opinions on that, just because there's a wide spectrum of beliefs and personal experiences and things. But I have found that punishing dogs does nothing.
And that's a good perspective to have. I mean, yeah, it's from my perspective, if you punish a dog, it's just going to, it's not necessarily going to fix the problem. It's probably going to create new ones.
And the dog doesn't understand what they're being corrected for. So if I have a dog that is, let's say they're, they have something in their mouth they shouldn't. Instead of pinching their ear or pulling it out of their mouth, first thing I'm going to say is, that's my fault, because whatever it was, I left out. I didn't have control of my environment. Secondly, I'm going to take that item and I'm going to work with the dog to teach him to leave it alone in a positive way. Eventually, through repetition and practice, the dog will not put that thing in their mouth again, whether it's a sock or a shoe or a hat. You want to work on that relationship with your dog and find alternatives that they can chew on and stuff like that.
Yeah, finding the alternatives goes a long way. I know before we started recording, I was telling you about Banjo's latest thing, which is like I want to try to bite at fabric and rip things, and whether it be my couch or the cat tree or his towel. And my go-to, rather than punishing my dog, was okay. Like obviously, I see behavior. You want to explore this behavior. What can we do to allow you to do it, but in a meaningful way that's not going to be detrimental to my environment?
And that's where enrichment comes into play.
Yeah. So I pulled out the rope toy, and next thing I know, he's sitting there and he's having a good old time tugging at the rope, pulling the strands and stuff. And he could destroy that. And it was like, okay, you could destroy that rope. And whenever it's destroyed, I'll throw it out and I'll get you a new one. Or like you said, like give him a bone or something else that's like, okay, he can
chewable.
Yeah.
Something that satisfies that urge, and then working on leave it with carpet squares from the store.
Yes.
Can be very helpful.
And I will say the leave it with the socks goes very far, because I let him out of his crate. There's a sock on the ground. He won't pick it up. And that was a behavior that whenever he was little, was like, oh, nope, he found a sock again. And he's doing the wiggle, like, oh, I know I'm doing something I'm not supposed to. And then you got to give me a treat to be able to drop it.
Yep. Oh, but it's cute. But we just don't want them doing that, because that can be dangerous.
And speaking of dogs being cute, one thing that I'll impress upon the audience to think about that I know that you would probably appreciate is when the dog, like a golden retriever, is small and cute, it's all fun and games whenever they're wanting to jump on you and get up in your face and stuff like that.
Mouth and
yeah, but that little puppy grows and grows and grows, and next thing you know, you can have a dog that is barreling down the hallway at 30 miles an hour and wants to just tackle you.
Knock you over and break your neck.
Treating the small dog as if it's a big dog has saved us a lot of grievance. And I mean, he even still to this day likes to jump up, but I feel like it would be a lot worse if you encourage that, from a very young age.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's cute until they're big, and then it's not cute anymore. We can teach them to do cute behaviors without hurting us by having them jump and bite and do different things. It might be cute if they're digging into the couch now, but in 2 months they're digging actually into the cushions. So you want to kind of curb that behavior before it turns into something more, something bad.
Oh, and speaking of behaviors like that, talk to us about, when dogs chase their tail, people think that that's cute.
It's not cute. I don't like that behavior. It can lead to a whole host of different issues, one of which is obsessive compulsive disorder, where whenever they get uncomfortable or they get nervous, they just obsessively chase their tail sometimes to the point of self-harm. So whenever I have a client that has a dog that chases tails, I do encourage them to discourage the behavior by redirecting and distracting, maybe looking at, okay, is the dog too tired? Is the environment too overwhelming? What steps can we do to manage the behavior so it doesn't continue? It's like chasing a laser. Don't do that with your dogs, and don't do that with other animals. It's something they can't catch. I saw a video recently of a dog that they had done the laser chasing when it was a puppy, and now the dog just constantly looks for the laser.
No.
It does not do anything else but look for that laser. I believe that was on TikTok, of all places.
I mean, I believe it. We back before we had a dog, in our small apartment, we had a little laser pointer with our cat, because that was how we had entertained her. But yeah, no, all of a sudden it becomes where's that thing?
They're constantly looking for it because they can never catch it. And that's just not good juju at all.
No, it's not. I think the last thing I have on my list officially to talk about was finding an ethical breeder for animals. Like
yes.
where do we want to get our animals from if we have a choice? I know that we, different socioeconomic backgrounds, it can be very expensive to get a purebred dog. So talk to me about what dog breeders you'd recommend, or how to go about getting a dog.
First and foremost, don't buy your dog from a pet store. All of those puppies that are in that pet store, they're cute, but they come home and they have a whole host of issues. They might have giardia, they might have hookworm, they might have a couple other issues. And all those puppies are provided by backyard breeders that are breeding for one thing: and that's money. They don't care about the genetics of the dog. They don't care about the temperament. They don't care about long-term health concerns. They just care about the almighty dollar. So when you go looking for a dog, first and foremost, do your research on the breed. Don't get a dog because you think it looks cool. Look for the dog that fits your lifestyle, and then find a very ethical breeder. Now, an ethical breeder is going to be somebody who's vested in where their puppies go. They're going to have a contract for you to sign that states that if something happens, they are going to take the dog back no matter what. So, for example, if somebody got a puppy and they had a medical episode and maybe passed away or were no longer able to care for their animal, the breeder's going to take the dog back and make sure that they have a good home, first and foremost. Secondly, you want to make sure that the breeder is breeding for the genetic health and well-being of future dogs. And you do want them proven. You don't want some dog, they came from an AKC champion. Well, how many generations ago was that? You want them proven. Another thing is a breeder is going to pick your companion for you. You're not going to put a deposit down for the pick of the litter. You're not going to get second or third. They're going to ask you what your lifestyle is like, and they're going to pick the puppy that best fits that lifestyle. They may take gender into consideration. Maybe you don't want a female dog or a male dog, but they're usually going to be picking the puppy that fits your lifestyle. And then, you do get what you pay for. You do. You want a dog that has, for example, sound hips and elbows for golden retrievers, good hearts, things like that. We don't want a dog that has a catastrophic heart issue at 3 years old. So you want a breeder that ensures those things.
And genetics, you've told me, play a large part too in the trainability or success of training whenever it comes to the animal. Tell us a little bit about how genetics impact the trainability of a dog. When
you are dealing with a dog that's bred for sound genetic and temperament, they fit the breed standard. You kind of know what you're going to be getting. And in terms of trainability, golden retrievers are awesome dogs to train. You guys got yourself a really, really nice, genetically sound Banjo. He's wonderful. You don't have to worry about hips and elbows and all sorts of other medical reasons. And his temperament is really, really good. Oftentimes when we get these backyard bred dogs, they might have hip issues, they might have temperament issues and all sorts of things. And you end up surrendering that dog to a shelter where they may be put to sleep. And it adds to the whole overpopulation of the shelter thing. On the flip side, you also want to pick reputable rescues. Rescues that sell puppies, no good. No good. Rescues that have a dog that's been returned to them a couple times because of behavioral reasons might not be the best rescue to rescue a dog from. You want to be able to meet the dog. You want a contract. You want something tangible to sign. You shouldn't be paying a bunch of money for something.
That's a good point. What would you say to audience members that maybe have never had an animal, or not an animal, never had a dog before, but are interested in, exploring that relationship? Would you suggest like adoption, or would you say, maybe fostering or volunteering?
Volunteering is a good way. You can go help the different animals out at the shelter, whether it's a cat or a dog or something else, and kind of get a feel for it, but also doing your research. Do your research. You shouldn't be getting a Rhodesian Ridgeback when you live in an apartment, right? So you want to make sure that you get the breed that fits your lifestyle. You also need to look at cost. Frenchies, for example, you get a Frenchie, they're prone to some health issues. Is that an expense you're going to be able to afford long term? Are you going to be able to provide the proper exercise for that dog, or even the proper grooming? So like poodles, for example, are you going to be able to get that dog groomed every 6 to 8 weeks? Are you going to be able to afford that? So it's not just looking at the temperament and everything else. It's also looking at the cost of the animal. Yorkies fit my lifestyle perfectly. That's why I have 2 of them. They're wonderful dogs.
They are.
They are. Mine are socialized, though. But also, if you choose to rescue, picking that proper rescue and going and meeting the dog and spending some time with the dog is important. Don't just get the dog because you see the picture on the computer. Go and meet the dog, do your research, and make sure you can provide what that dog needs for their life.
That's some very sound advice too. And I will say, it's not just the dog that you're getting whenever you finally acquire a dog. It's all you need your food and water. You need the bowls. You need the toys. The
vaccinations, the training, the exercise. If you work 10 hours a day, a dog probably isn't in the cards for you right now, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm able to have 5 dogs and a foster right now, because the way I structure my business allows me to go home and interact with them and make sure they have potty breaks and plenty of exercise and enrichment and all of those things. Mm-hmm. If I had a regular 9-to-5 job, I'd probably just have one dog and I'd be home every day for lunch to let that dog out and interact with them and play with them.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as Banjo is concerned, I am a software engineer and will work from home. So that largely impacted our decision of can we, take on an animal? Because if both me and my wife are out of the house for extended periods of time, it's not fair to that animal to just say, okay, well, you're just going to go in your crate and you're going to stay here for an entire day. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to come home and be tired. And I don't want to interact with you because you're barking at me and you're doing things you shouldn't. And, it just that type of relationship mm-hmm. doesn't sound like a very healthy, positive one.
Think of them like 4-legged toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
They're forever toddlers. You have to interact with them. You have to love them. You have to groom them. You have to take care of them. And it's so much more than just getting a dog because it looks cool. You should really, really do your research, really do some soul searching, and make sure that your lifestyle fits the breed, but also fits the ability to just have a dog.
Yeah. And I will say too that you get out of the dog what you put into the dog.
Exactly.
I think so many people, they see, especially nowadays on social media, they're like, oh, I see the best parts of having a dog, but they don't realize the countless hours and of iteration mm-hmm. and, failure to get to that point. It's cool to have a 20-second video of a dog doing something cool, but you don't see the thousands of hours
that go into that video, simply walking your dog. That's mm-hmm. a lot of work without training.
Especially loose leash walking.
Yes. So when you get a dog and you take him on walks, if you don't want him pulling, you're going to have to put hours and hours and hours of work training that dog to walk nicely on that leash, because it's not natural for them to do that. We like to walk in straight lines at the same pace, and dogs were not designed to do that. They like to weave back and forth. They like to go up and down and all around, and sometimes run and roll and do different things. And we have to teach them, when you're walking with people, you walk on a loose leash by my side. Yes, you're allowed to have sniffies, but you can't pull. Mm-hmm. And in order to get to that point, you have to put in hours and hours and hours of training. So that's also another consideration people need to take into account. If you want that Instagram dog, you need to put in the training, because there is so much that goes behind those videos.
100%. And Banjo hasn't made his full debut yet on social media, but I can attest that there have been moments where I'll see people and they'll go, "Wow, that dog is really well behaved or really well trained," and I just think to myself, I'm like, "Yeah, there's
hours and hours and hours into that." Yeah. So that's also an important thing to consider. Another thing is, if you're living in an apartment versus a house, mm-hmm. that's another thing you have to look into. No one wants to hear your dog barking and crying while you're gone at work.
Yeah.
So you need to think about that, and you need to work on separating yourself from that dog early on, so they don't develop separation anxiety and stuff like that. So there's a whole variety of things that go into actually getting a dog. It's not just going to the store and buying one or going to the shelter and rescuing one. You do need to put some thought into it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, and your life changes from that point onward, it's not like my cats where, you know, oh, I can go for like 2 days, leave some food and water, and they've got their litter box. Like I have to have somebody either come and watch my dog and take care of them and socialize with them, or the dog's coming with me.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's something I think people don't consider necessarily. It's like, yeah, no, this is literally like a child at this point.
It is. And it's a big responsibility. It really is.
Yeah. I didn't fully, you know, imagine the impact of having a puppy, like a larger puppy until, you know, they start growing, and it's just like you said, a little velociraptor that you're just trying to tame at all times, that, you know, but that animal didn't come into the world understanding the rules and regulations and expectations.
Exactly.
I think that the audience, you know, it's just important to take away that, you know, whenever you see those really well-trained animals that are like maybe your therapy animals or service dogs, that, you know, they didn't become that way through just casual, you know, here's a treat, you know, you get pat on the head. Like there's
a lot of work into those dogs. And that's just something people really, really, really need to soul search on before they do get a pet. Because then otherwise you end up with more in the shelter. Yeah.
Now, out of curiosity, because so we don't have too much left on our list, but like something that did pop in my head when we talked about service dogs, what are your thoughts on people who, you know, slap a vest on their dog and claim that they're a service dog and take them to places that they shouldn't be?
That is horrible. That's leading to a whole host of issues, because service dogs are medical devices. They're protected under the ADA, which is the American
Disabilities Act.
Association. And when people abuse that, you're actually making it harder for your fellow human being. Somebody who has a legitimate medical issue that needs that animal to function and have quality of life within society. They're unable to do that because of people who just want to take their pet. Trust me, your pet's happier at home. Service dogs have a job to do, and when you bring your little chihuahua into the grocery store, and they're in the cart and they're barking and everything, that makes it that much harder for somebody who maybe has epileptic seizures and is bringing their seizure alert dog into the grocery store so they can get their groceries, and they're being told they can't come in because they've had a bad experience with somebody abusing it. There was a story recently, can't remember the names, but there was a gentleman on a flight who was blind that boarded the flight with his guide dog. And there were these people that had just a pet dog with a vest on that were causing him a lot of issues on the plane. And it drew attention to him and his disability. But second off, it could have prevented his dog from being able to do his job. And an Instagram influencer, I can't remember her name, ended up switching seats with this couple so that the gentleman could enjoy his flight with his dog, and these imposters were not seated next to him. So it really does abuse the system and cause people that have legitimate medical reasons from actually going out and doing the things that we take for granted every day, like grocery shopping.
And like you said, there is a difference between, you know, when that dog has its vest on and it is in the mindset of like, I'm following through with a job right now, similar to how you would imagine, you know, canines that are used with police officers, you know, to take down individuals or to smell out, you know, drugs. You know, it's an entirely other, you know, ballpark for the medical side of it, but that animal is performing a job.
Exactly.
So try to keep that in mind. I just say that because I know that there are plenty of people that they see a cute dog and they go, oh man, I really want to pet that dog, but that dog is actually, you know, working.
Service dog, and you need to leave them alone. And also ESAs, emotional support animals. They're not service dogs. They're not therapy dogs. It's
Correct.
Just a glorified title for a pet. Yes, you may need that emotional support animal in your home, but they don't belong in public places where pets are generally not allowed. Because then people who have diabetes or are blind or deaf or have some sort of medical issue that you might not necessarily be able to see can't be people, because they're being accosted because of these imposters.
Yeah, very, very well put. Now, I don't have anything else on my immediate list here, and I'm sure we could talk all day.
Oh, we sure could.
There's plenty more topics to talk about whenever it comes to dogs and dog training. But was there anything we haven't touched so far today that you want to bring up?
Oh, well, we might be here for hours if I do that.
Well, we can always record another one of these. So.
That would be cool. I guess another thing is with the heat coming up here in Arizona, we do need to be careful taking our dogs out on walks, especially right now with the UV index as it is. It's, I think you said 104 on Friday. Yeah,
it's supposed to be 104.
Yeah. So you probably don't want to be walking your dogs outside. I do know if the temperature gets to 77 degrees, the asphalt's 125 degrees, which is enough to burn your dog's paws in under a minute. And if you just Google what those pictures look like, they're pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
So looking at alternative things we can do with our dogs to get the extra exercise, maybe waking up an hour earlier to take them on that walk, because you can always go back to bed, or taking them on a walk when the sun is down. Just make sure you're wearing proper reflective equipment when you're in a dark sky city like us. But also adding some enrichment into your daily routine, maybe doing a sniff spot or taking your dog to Tractor Supply for a walk instead of burning their feet outside. If you can't comfortably put your bare foot or hand on the ground for 7 seconds, your dog should not be walking on that ground.
Yeah. And that is a test that, makes sense. I was walking around outside today with bare feet where it was sunny. After, a couple of seconds, it was starting to become uncomfortable. So as my dog was walking around, I was like, okay, buddy, let's try to go
inside.
Try to go toward the shade, because he just really wants to be out there. But yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's personal because each dog is going to have their own tolerance. Now, if they're in the backyard and they're comfortable, I'm going to let them be, but I'm not going to be taking them on a walk.
Maybe one of the last things we can leave the audience with, whenever you take your dog on a walk, right? You told me this analogy and I think that it is really sound. How would you, audience, like to go to a museum with a blindfold on and not be able to see anything whenever you're there? And then just leave. That is basically what you're doing to your dog if you take them on a walk and they don't get to sniff.
Yep. Let them sniff, because that walk is their walk. It's not your walk. So when I take my dogs on a walk, if I have 30 minutes and they want to stop and smell a bush for 20 of those minutes, we're stopping and I'm letting them smell that bush.
Exactly. Like you said, it is their walk.
Yep. And they experience the world primarily with their nose.
100%. Where can the audience members find you?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm on YouTube. I finally hit 301 subscribers today, so I'm very excited.
Congrats.
I like to showcase different animals on there, and then I do have some enrichment videos and a couple others. I'm trying to do more of those. I'm also on TikTok, and I'm on Facebook. Little bit on Instagram, but not as much as I probably should be.
Yeah, aren't we all?
I do have a link tree that I can share with you if you're interested.
Yeah. And for the audience, I will put all links in the description below, especially the ways to connect with Kennedi should you have any questions or you want to get involved in some dog training yourself. Oh, yeah. You said that you also offer group classes whenever it's not hot as heck outside.
When it's cooler. Group classes ended early this year because it got hot so quick. But usually those will come about the fall and they'll go until the spring, and then summer, unless it's early. I don't do group classes just because it's too hot. And I actually like my group classes to be outside. Good to work with the distractions.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes a big difference when there's birds chirping and breeze going by and smells and all of
those things. Because that's the world they live in. They don't live at my shop.
Well, I hear Mr. Banjo has woken up from his nap, so I need to go tend to him. But audience, thank you so much for joining us. Kennedi will likely be back for some more conversations about dogs and dog training. I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.